Welcome to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. Do you wonder how your faith fits together with your profession? Well, join us as we explore how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Well, hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Barry Schwenk. I'm a veterinarian and a pastor, and your host for Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission, where we explore the intersection of faith and vocation. Today, I am joined by Dr. Cora Farley, a recent graduate at Kansas State University, current intern at Riddle in Lexington, Kentucky, and it's good to talk to you again, Cora. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm probably more awake than you are as an intern at a very busy equine practice. But that's not saying a lot. I think most people probably are more awake. So I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. We had a great conversation before. And if you are joining us for the first time today, you might want to go back and check out that episode, that conversation where Dr. Farley and I were talking about faith, especially navigating through vet school. And the beautiful thing is you made it through.
I did. It is by the grace of God, because if there is an obstacle, I have faced it.
Well, and it's interesting because just the obstacle of vet school alone is a huge one. But so many people are facing so many other obstacles at exactly the same time, to the point where it feels like you've just been buried by an avalanche. Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Life does not stop because you're in vet school. And so if something is going to go wrong, it's probably going to happen during vet school. Like
that's true.
We weren't 2 or 3 weeks into my first year of vet school and a flood hit Manhattan. And we had, I think, 5 or 6 students that were actually displaced. Like, I picked one of them up from a hotel one morning because she couldn't, like, she had to flee her apartment. Like, she had to evacuate because it was underwater. So, I mean, life does not stop because you're in vet.
Well, that's horrible. That's horrible. I don't know how I missed that flood in Manhattan. I used to, when I was there in the mid 90s, I used to go hiking through the spillway all the time. That was my place to go and clear my head, but there was no water there. There was barely any water there. And I can imagine with the flood in town, that probably just broke the floodgates. So, oh man. Oh. Well, one of the things that we talked about in our last conversation, we talked about just the role of other individuals that God puts in our lives, especially, to help us navigate some of those darker emotional, psychological, and even spiritual times in our lives. And it's one of those things where we see, or it's hard to see how we're going to get through it, but the way that God works things can turn out a lot better than we thought. How are you finding it? I realize you're very early on in your internship. How have those connections from vet school been helpful, even getting to Lexington and getting you started?
Yeah, so there are lots of K-Staters that are here at Riddle, which has been really helpful. And actually, both of my mentors are Mormon. I don't totally understand the differences between Mormon and like Protestant Christian, but they have both been extremely helpful, beyond caring and kind, in helping me, find housing and get started. And then one of the things that I want to do, I don't know how much I'll be able to make it to church, but I want to find a church to attend here in Lexington. And so there's sort of a team of us that all work on this really large farm down here. And so we were standing in the ambulatory garage the other day chatting, and I was like, well, do you have any recommendations for an eye doctor? Because I'm blind as a bat. And then one of the associates that works very closely with my mentors was like, oh, well, this is the eye doctor I go to, and this is the nurse practitioner I see as like my general practitioner. And I was like, do you have any like recommendations for churches? Like, not even knowing if she goes to, like, I haven't even ridden with her. I've never been alone in a truck with her before.
Right.
And I was like, I'm going to go out on a limb. And she was like, I actually have been to several here in town. I just haven't really found one that, you know, I've really committed to yet. But I was like, you're a believer too. So that was kind of fun, that I was like, oh, that's actually, you know, that's kind of cool. She didn't really have any church recommendations because she hasn't been able to find a home church. But I mean, when you're working on thoroughbred horses in Lexington, it's difficult to make it to church.
It's true.
But it's actually been really cool. And even though I still have people, you know, back in Manhattan or back home in Pennsylvania, I am still surrounded through technology, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever it is, with strong believers that are praying for me, and that, you know, are there if I ever need anyone to talk to or whatever. So it's been an interesting transition, but it's actually been it was smoother than the transition from undergrad to vet school.
That's good.
So it's actually
that's a step.
Really so
that's
far.
A step. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's, you know, it's one of those things, again, as a vet student, it was hard for me to figure out how faith and veterinary medicine were going to fit together, because just the time constraints alone, like what you just said, even the first couple of jobs that I had, Sundays were the big days where I had to work. And so how do you navigate church? How do you, and trying to understand that season of your life, even as a student, and making that transition is really tough to do. And it's one of the reasons why, back in '97, we had this idea of connecting with veterinarians and connecting vet students to veterinarians, for that purpose, because it goes a long way when you can do exactly what you just said. You're talking to someone and you're like, oh, wait, you're a believer? Oh, well, hey, so tell me how you do this. How do you get to church? How do you, and that's really what the CVM conference, the Real Life, Real Impact, was kind of born out of, is how do Christian veterinarians live their lives in a way that is impactful, one on themselves spiritually, but then also on the world around them. And I know you've been to, you've been to 4 Real Life, Real Impacts? Is that 3 or 4?
I think I've been to 4. I went to 3 in person: Oklahoma State, Colorado, Iowa State, and then they had one, because of COVID, one was virtual, and I was able to attend that one as well. So 4, we're at 4.
So how did that conference, as a student, how did that conference help you with your own navigation through vet school and beyond?
It's actually been really amazing. So my first year that I went was, I think, at Oklahoma State, and I drove down with some second years that I did not know at all. And then one of them got like horrendous food poisoning and then was like sick half the time that we were driving back to Manhattan. So it was a very interesting first Real Life, Real Impact conference. But I have found that at least once at every Real Life, Real Impact, there is a seminar or a speaker that like really gets to you. And I don't remember which seminars and speakers were which conferences, because vet school just like mushes your brain.
Is it a blur? Is it a blur for you? Okay.
I might have just finished, but like it's still all very fuzzy.
You're still recovering. Yeah. It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah. But I remember there was one talk. So I really struggled academically in vet school. So I was really depressed my first year, which is obviously not good for studying and grades. And then I got on a new medication spring of my first year. And so when I spent the summer at a alumni veterinarian practice up in North Dakota. She is also a believer and an equine vet. And so like, I love her. She's one of my like veterinarian role models, whether she knows it or not. Came back second year and I was like, we're going to rock this. And halfway through the semester, I got horrendous gastroenteritis, spent like a day in the hospital on fluids, missed a week of school, ended up getting a D in pharmacology. Wow. The student dean at the time, the dean of student academic affairs or whatever, was like, you might want to think about like having a plan B.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't have a plan B. Right. And I don't remember if it was the Real Life, Real Impact immediately after that. I think it was. There was a new veterinarian graduate, and she was only, I think, 2 or 3 years out of school. She had really struggled academically in vet school. I think she had to repeat one or multiple classes. And then when she first got out into practice, she, had some horror stories of like things that can go wrong. And if you practice veterinary medicine enough, like something horrendous is going to go wrong, and it's probably going to be your fault. And you know what? She's still practicing. She's still got a really strong faith. And I remember she was really nervous telling her story, as anyone would be. And then, but she just talked about having, so much hope that like she felt like this was the path that God wanted her to be on. And, she may have been like, I imagine it like running, when you're running track and there's the hurdles, like me and her are the person that are like tripping over the hurdles while we're trying to like run this track that is life and vet school. But she's still a successful veterinarian. I think she's still in practice. She's still able to share her faith because, she was able to come back and, speak some hope into me that, this is not going to be the end of the road just because you got held back or have to repeat a class. And, we talked a little bit about imposter syndrome last time we chatted, and it gets even worse out in real practice. And so it was really inspiring to hear her story. And so that was one of the main, one of the early on things that I discovered at Real Life, Real Impact is like, you get to hear stories of like people that have gone before you, whether it's like them sharing their story of how God worked in their lives, or I met multiple couples and individuals that were actually preparing to go into long-term mission work through CVM. And we talked a little bit last time as well that like I was involved in missions a little in my undergrad, and like that is a goal of mine to combine missions and veterinary medicine. And so to solidify that like that is a possibility and that there are people out there doing that is awesome. And then I've actually made a lot of friendships and really awesome relationships through CV, going through Real Life, Real Impact as well. I think it was the first Real Life, Real Impact that I went to. I actually started dating a guy like soon after. It might've been like the next fall, and like Real Life, Real Impact was like the first time we'd connected. And that had like been our introduction. It didn't last, but it was a good relationship. Just,
that's not a good plug for Real Life, Real Impact. I was about to promote it as a potential dating app, but not. Okay, maybe we shouldn't do that.
Dating in vet school is really, really hard. And he has since graduated and actually just got engaged, and I'm so happy for him. But we were just at different, we were at different spots in our paths and our walks. So it just, it didn't work out. That doesn't mean he's a bad person. He's a fantastic person. It just, the timing was not right for us. And now he's found his person, and that is amazing. But I was also able to make, I think it was during the year that they had to go virtual for COVID. I actually met one of my best friends through Real Life, Real Impact. There was like a prayer. I was going to call it a wish list, prayer requests.
A prayer wish list. I got you. Okay. A prayer request list. You're good.
This is what happens when you're an intern.
That's exactly right.
They had asked for prayer requests, and there was a girl from Iowa State that, typed into the chat box, because it was all on Zoom, that she was really struggling academically and in her program, and she, wanted prayers for that. And so me being like the awkwardly bold person that I am was like, hey, can I get your email? And so she was like, sure, and like typed it back.
Right.
And, stranger danger, it's real. And so I sent her an email because I was like, I had, at that point in time, I had gone through getting held back and like being told to find a plan B. And so I was like, God has seen me through this. Like, it's going to be okay. And I just want to I felt like God was speaking to me to tell her that it was going to be okay. And that God is still good, even though life sucks right now.
Mhm.
And so I sent her this email and she never responded. Like 4 months went by.
4
It was
months.
the next semester, and I get this email out of the blue, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I never responded." She felt so bad. She was like, "I absolutely loved your email, and it was so helpful and so encouraging. And I'm so glad that you shared your story and your walk in vet school and faith with me." And since we had then become modern Snapchat pen pals, and we talk almost every day. And we, since then, we've both been through a lot of life, different life events, different life challenges. She just started her 4th year at Iowa State, and I am so excited for her. And, even on her first rotation, I had to give her a little bit of a pep talk, but I love giving her pep talks because I have been there. I know what she's going through, and I know that she's going to make it. And so it's been so cool to like look back and just see the different ways that like real life, real impact has like provided me with these opportunities for short-term relationships and long-term relationships. Like it's incredible. And I heard that for whatever region Kansas is in, that it's going to be at K-State next year. So no mares are allowed to have their babies before I go to Kansas for real life.
Well, and this is I think an important thing, right? Because we talked, I think the last time we talked about how we had talked about that imposter syndrome a little bit, and just how within our profession, like we're very task oriented. We're very the majority of us are rather type A. We like to have things lined up. My surgical tray has to be a certain way for me to function, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then anything that disrupts that really throws us off. And we feel like if we don't have everything together all the time, that we have failed. And we feel
I never put anything together.
that's exactly. Well, see, and that's the point, is that all of us, we think that, and we put that weight on our own shoulders, and yet none of us have it together. And I appreciate your willingness to share that with her, because if more of us were willing to open up about our own struggles and our own failures, it would certainly help others to navigate it. And Paul says, why am I allowed to suffer if it's not for me to be able to share the same kind of consolation that God gave to me when I was suffering?
Absolutely.
And that's exactly where we are. And I think that's a great story. Now, are you both planning on going to that next real life, real impact? Are you going to be able to meet up in person, or are you going to have to Snapchat the whole time?
So, making fun of Snapchat. So we actually met for the first time in person, spring of 23.
Okay.
Because Real Life, Real Impact was at Iowa State.
Oh.
And so we had tried multiple times to like meet in person the 2 years prior to that, and it just like didn't work. So I was conveniently on vacation, and I was like, I'm going to do this. We are going to meet. Right. And so I drove from Manhattan up to Ames. It's snowing. It's like 10 o'clock at night. And I drive into this apartment complex that's like massive and a maze. And I texted her and I was like, I'm here. And it was super awesome to finally meet. Like we hadn't ever met face to face, but like, I felt like I already knew so much about her. We'd been communicating for like 2 years. We stayed up till like 1 a.m. talking. We went to Real Life Impact the next day, had an awesome time, then went out to dinner at her favorite restaurant. And it was just amazing to like finally meet in person. And like, it was like the culmination of the friendship. So I sure as heck hope that I'm going to do my best to make it to Manhattan. I really, really hope that she's either on vacation or on a rotation where she can like, sneak away and come down for, even if she is to head home, Saturday night. I really hope that we can meet up again. But even like if we never see each other in person again, like we're still going to be the best of friends. Like faith and vet school bonds you like nothing else. And so I would love to see her again. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I hope it does. But I mean, like, God has brought us together in such a unique way that, like, what's that verse? What God has brought together, nothing can break, or three chords are stronger than something. I don't know. Obviously, I have a lot of stuff in my brain, so my verse memorization
it's okay.
But it's in there.
I bet if I asked you a dosage for acepromazine right now, that would be faster. That'd be faster on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah, because I just looked it up the other day too.
Well, so this is one of the things that we fail to do is we fail to just to connect on those personal levels. And it really is. And what I've appreciated about your story is that the way that there have been so many wonderful connections, and this one, even a distance, I hate to call it a distance relationship, but like that's what it is that you connect over a virtual meeting. And this is the whole purpose of those conferences is to allow students to connect on a level where you can see that everyone's struggling in the same way. And then to have veterinary professionals come in to say, guess what? I also got D's in vet school. I also struggled with that. I also had to walk through that whole valley, and God saw me through, and here I am on the other side. And so even if you're going through it now, hopefully that gives you hope to face and to face it and to be able to navigate through it. So I also know that for Real Life, Real Impact, they're always looking for speakers.
I would love to. That would be like just as surreal as graduating vet school to have gone Real Life, Real Impact so much. And Elizabeth Mendoza has already kind of like mentioned that a little bit. But I would love to. I feel like CVF and, CVM and Real Life, Real Impact have been like such a huge part of like my faith journey and my journey as a veterinary student. And hopefully it continues to be a part of my journey as a veterinarian. Like, what I went through in vet school was awful, and I would not wish it upon anyone else, but like, it is survivable. And looking back, I wouldn't change any of it, because it is such an incredible blessing to be able to talk to people like my friend from Iowa State and be like, it's going to be okay. And like, to be able to say that and to be an encouragement to those people, because everyone's always like really embarrassed about mental health or, getting D's or whatever. And I'm like, there's no reason to be embarrassed. Like, it's so many people are going through it. Like, being open, it's so easy to be open about it. Kind of scary at times, but it's so easy to be open about it, and to be able to mentor others through that. I love it. Like, I would not change my story for the world. It was horrendous at the time, but looking back, like, it was all part of God's plan. And like, I would love to be able to come back as a speaker. Like, that would just be the coolest thing in the world.
Icing on the cake. Icing on the cake.
Yes.
Well, the truth is that scars remind us that we're stronger today than we were yesterday. And
absolutely,
it's okay. And that's, I love that about your story and your willingness to share it. And I would totally encourage you to do that as a new grad, sharing some of those words of wisdom to some of the students. And if you're listening, right now, and if you're interested in attending a Real Life, Real Impact, you can actually go to the CVM website at cvm.org, and under student ministries, you can find access when our Real Life, Real Impact registrations go live. And I would encourage you to check out the Real Life, Real Impact in your area. And even more specifically, check out the one at Kansas State, and check out the list of speakers, because hopefully Dr. Cora Farley will be on that list. And you might want to get your tickets now, because my guess is they're going to be sold out, because everyone's going to want to hear what you have to say. They
don't sell out tickets, do they?
No, they don't. No, they don't.
I was going to say, I didn't think it was like a limited thing.
I was trying to overmarket. I was trying to overhype the whole thing to get people moving, but whatever. It's okay. I guess that could be considered lying too. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that.
You're all good. You're all good.
Well, I thank you again for taking the time to chat with me, especially during your busy internship. I know you're exhausted, but hopefully.
Thank you for having me. This has been, I'm not gonna lie, I got home today and I was like, oh, I really want to go to bed, but I have this, and then it popped up that we had this podcast meeting, and I was like, I really want to go to bed, but like, I really want to do this podcast. That's just, it's really cool. It's a very sort of surreal experience. And when Elizabeth mentioned like, hey, we kind of want you to like tell your story on the CVM podcast, I was like, really? That would be awesome. It's just, it's icing on the cake. Like, I don't want to say that God has sort of, laid the golden road before me because I'm doing an equine internship that doesn't exist. But looking back, like, God has provided for me so much throughout vet school and throughout all of my struggles, and even bringing me here to Lexington and Roon Riddle, like, to be able to give back and like mentor others and young vet students or wannabe vet students, like through CVM, like, that's just, it's such a blessing, and it brings me so much joy to be able to share my story and be an encouragement to others.
Well, let's do this. Let's make sure that we set up a time to talk again when you're getting closer to the end of your internship, and let's talk about all the amazing things God is going to do for you this year as well, because I'm confident that He's got something big in store for you. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Super cool. That would be super cool.
Well, thanks again. And for everyone who is listening, no joking now, I really would encourage you to go to the CVM website and check out the nearest real life, real impact might be coming to your area. If you're a student, sign up, register. There's some wonderful classes. If you are a veterinary professional, just like Cora, there are students that need to hear your story. There are connections that God intends to make because those relationships that are made in the crucible of veterinary medicine and faith are relationships that indeed will last. And especially if we keep God at the very center, we'll bring honor and glory to Him in everything that we do. That's the whole point. That's why we have these conversations, so that hopefully together we'll learn how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Thank you for listening to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. If you were blessed by this content, like and subscribe so that you are alerted when new content is released. If you would like more information about CVM, or if you have questions, comments, or topical suggestions, you can find us online at www.cvm.org. Or you can contact us by emailing podcast@cvm.org. God has a plan for the nations, and that plan includes you. We pray that CVM has encouraged you to live out your calling with confidence and competence. So, until next time, may the voice of the shepherd ring loud and clear as you follow him in faith to the intersection of two roads crossing.